Let me ask you something. What if the absolute biggest problem in politics right now isn't actually our disagreements?
Okay, I'm listening.
Like, what if the real crisis is the fact that we've just entirely stopped trying to understand each other? Or, I mean, maybe even worse, what if we genuinely think we understand the other side, but we are completely, totally missing the mark?
Yeah, we operate under this massive illusion of understanding, I think.
Right.
We look at someone across the political aisle, and we just see a label like a bumper sticker, a voting record, maybe a hat, and our brains instantly just autofill an entire backstory for them.
Oh, absolutely. We fill in the blanks.
Exactly. We assign them this rigid set of motivations, a whole moral character, and, a predictable future. But that cognitive autofill function, that little shortcut our brain takes to save energy, it's almost always fundamentally wrong.
It is. And today we're unpacking a concept that completely challenges that exact autofill reflex. We're doing a deep dive into Dana Perino's book, Purple State.
Yeah, which is a fascinating read.
It really is. And for a bit of context for you listening, Dana Perino is a former White House press secretary. She's a really prominent political commentator and basically someone who has lived her entire professional life deeply entrenched inside the political system.
Right, and given that resume, it is crucial to establish the baseline of our discussion today right out of the gate.
Yes, definitely.
Because someone with her background, you might expect them to write this passionate defense of a specific partisan side. But we're going to be strictly impartial here.
Completely neutral.
Yeah, we are not taking any political sides today because the core premise of Purple State doesn't take sides. It actually just impartially examines this highly uncomfortable idea, which is that the entire partisan binary is flawed.
Yeah.
Both the left and the right are just missing the actual reality of the American electorate.
Right. The premise basically pulls back the curtain on how the game itself is broken. Because she's, the ultimate political insider, you might assume she views the world in strict red and blue. But she argues the exact opposite. Her point is that America is not neatly or rigidly divided into two monolithic sides.
Not at all.
Most people are deeply nuanced. Like, they blend different viewpoints depending on the specific issue at hand. They might hold really strict views on fiscal responsibility, but then they care deeply about environmental conservation.
Yeah, they don't fit the neat little labels.
Exactly. They are actually, purple.
And this challenges the very foundation of how modern political strategy and media narratives operate. I mean, we are fed this daily diet of absolute division.
Oh, constant division.
But if you actually look at the data, and if you listen to the private conversations of everyday citizens, you find this vast, complex middle ground. The rigid red or blue voter is, it's often more of an extreme caricature rather than the statistical norm.
But wait, if most people are this nuanced shade of purple, why does it feel like everyone is constantly screaming at each other from opposite ends of a stadium?
Well, it comes down to a massive problem of visibility.
Okay, how so?
The loudest voices, the ones that dominate social media algorithms, the ones getting booked on cable news panels, the ones generating all that viral outrage, they're the absolute fringes.
Right.
And because those extreme voices take up, like, all the oxygen and all the bandwidth in the room, the nuanced middle gets completely ignored. The purple majority is essentially rendered invisible.
Think about looking at a restaurant review website. You go online to check out a new local spot, right?
Yelp or something.
Exactly. You only ever see the furious, absolutely unhinged one-star reviews from people claiming, the waiter intentionally ruined their anniversary.
Oh, yeah. Always the extreme.
Or you see the euphoric, hyper-exaggerated 5-star reviews from people saying the appetizer was this transcendent culinary awakening.
Right. And if you're the restaurant owner or just a prospective diner looking at that site, you start making decisions based on a complete statistical illusion.
The total illusion.
It makes you think nobody just had an okay, pretty good meal. Because the 3-star reviewers, the people who, thought the food was fine, but maybe the music was a bit loud, they don't bother writing a breathless review.
No, they just pay their bill and go home.
Exactly. They go home. So by only looking at the visible data, you assume the world is solely made up of people who either deeply love or viciously hate this establishment.
And it completely masks the reality of the silent majority. The purple people, those 3-star reviewers, they might actually be the vast majority of the country.
Statistically, they are.
Right. But the megaphone is exclusively handed to the fringes. So we start to govern, we legislate, and we interact based on a ghost. We treat the extreme fringe as if it represents half the population when it's really just the loudest fraction.
And that illusion, it really dictates how we handle disagreement. If you actually believe that half the country is made up of radical extremists who actively want to destroy your way of life, well, you don't engage in debate.
No, you definitely don't.
You engage in combat. And this brings us to the empathy deficit that Perino highlights in the book.
Which is such a huge point.
Yeah. People generally do not disagree with you because they are malicious or evil. They disagree with you because they have entirely different life experiences, different values, and different immediate priorities.
But wait, let me push back on that for a second.
Okay.
Isn't jumping to judgment just a basic survival instinct? I mean, if someone proposes a policy or an idea that genuinely threatens my family's financial security or like the safety of my neighborhood, my natural reaction isn't to sit back and say, oh, let's be infinitely curious about their perspective.
Right, of course not.
My brain immediately tells me to build a defensive wall. It feels like a biological imperative to protect what we value, doesn't it?
Oh, it is absolutely a biological imperative.
Yeah.
You're talking about the amygdala, right? That part of the brain responsible for the fight or flight response.
Right.
We are tribal creatures.
Right.
We are biologically wired to identify threats in milliseconds. But, and this is the key, there is a massive difference between a biological instinct designed to keep us safe from physical predators and a conscious societal norm that we apply to complex policy debates.
Right. They aren't the same thing.
No. We have allowed that raw, primitive threat response to completely hijack our higher reasoning. Society right now, it basically rewards the snap judgment and penalizes the pause.
Wow, yeah. We've totally replaced curiosity with condemnation. Perino focuses heavily on this idea of listening as, like, a lost art.
Yes.
And she doesn't just mean the physical act of hearing words while you mentally load your ammunition for a counter-argument. She means genuine listening.
Right, actual comprehension.
Because modern political conversations have mutated into a zero-sum game. It is entirely about point scoring now. It is not about understanding each other at all.
And that shift from comprehension to combat has resulted in a very specific casualty. It's the absolute death of the phrase, I might be wrong.
Oh man, that is so true. I genuinely cannot remember the last time I heard someone concede a point in a public forum.
It just doesn't happen.
It feels like admitting you might be wrong is treated as this severe moral failure now, rather than a sign of intellectual maturity or, just simple human humility.
Well, because if the sole objective is winning the interaction, then conceding even a minor point is a devastating loss.
Right.
But if the goal is understanding, then conceding a point is rapid progress. We have fundamentally confused those two things. We treat intellectual flexibility as weakness.
But this hyper-defensive instinct, this desperate need to win at all costs, it isn't just spontaneously occurring, is it? Like, we aren't waking up in a vacuum and deciding to be hostile to our neighbor.
No, not at all.
It is being actively cultivated and accelerated by the media ecosystem around us.
Oh, absolutely. It's the media reality distortion field.
Yeah.
Now, we all know the basic business model of the attention economy, right? Conflict grabs attention.
Conflict equals clicks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
More extreme opinions lead to more outrage, which drives engagement and profitability. But the deeper, far more insidious psychological mechanism at play here is how this loop alters our baseline perception of reality.
How so?
It works through something called the availability heuristic.
Right, okay, because if our brains only easily recall the most extreme, outrageous examples of a political group, mostly because that's literally all the screen shows us, our brains automatically calculate that those extreme examples are the norm.
That is precisely the mechanism, yeah. The availability heuristic dictates that we judge the frequency or the likelihood of an event by how easily examples come to mind.
And the examples are everywhere.
Right. The media ecosystem completely floods our cognitive availability with fringe behavior. It artificially inflates the size and influence of the extremes. It acts like this crazy funhouse mirror that warps the everyday citizen's view of their own community.
So you look out your window, and instead of seeing, like, the guy who occasionally borrows your lawnmower or stresses over his mortgage and worries about his kids' math grades, you just see a caricature.
Yes, exactly.
You see the walking embodiment of whatever extreme viewpoint the algorithm fed you that morning over coffee.
And when you do that, you strip away their humanity and their purple complexity. You just reduce them to an avatar for the opposing team.
Wow.
And once you view a human being as a two-dimensional avatar, empathy becomes cognitively impossible. You cannot empathize with a symbol. You can only fight it, defeat it, or cancel it.
Man, it is incredibly easy to sit here, point at the media companies, point at the politicians in Washington and say, they broke the system, they created the funhouse mirror.
Oh, it's very easy to pass the blame.
But Perino's premise doesn't let us off the hook that easily. The analysis takes a sharp, honestly very uncomfortable turn toward personal accountability here.
Yeah, it really does. Because the funhouse mirror only works if people keep lining up to buy tickets.
Oof.
The politicians, the algorithms, the media, they are powerful catalysts, sure. The uncomfortable truth of the book is that the problem is us.
We are the problem.
We supply the demand for the division. We're the ones clicking the outrage bait. We're the ones sharing the inflammatory posts. We actively contribute to this divide through our own rigid assumptions, our eagerness to judge, and frankly, our outright refusal to engage with those who think differently.
And the emotional toll of this personal participation is just staggering. This phenomenon has bled way beyond the realm of voting booths or abstract policy debates.
Oh, it's everywhere.
It is actively tearing at the fabric of our personal lives. I mean, families are instituting no politics rules at holiday dinners just to survive until dessert. Decades-long friendships are silently evaporating over social media comments. Workplaces are fracturing into resentful factions simply because people have completely stopped trying to see the nuance in one another.
Yeah, we are experiencing ambient heartbreak.
Ambient heartbreak. I like that.
I want you to think about a specific, strained relationship in your own life right now. Someone you used to be close to. But recently, there's just been this invisible, heavy wall between you. Maybe it's a sibling, a neighbor, or, a coworker you used to grab lunch with.
And how did that fracture actually start? That's the question. Was it a massive, unforgivable, fundamental betrayal?
Probably not.
Right. Or was it just a gradual hardening of assumptions, like a slow drip of moments where neither of you were willing to pause, drop the defensive wall, and just say, I might be wrong?
Yeah.
The scariest reality presented in this book is that this level of relational fracture, this constant low-grade trauma, it's rapidly becoming the default state of affairs.
And normalizing a state of constant relational stress based on manufactured misunderstandings is just tragic.
It really is.
Because when you realize the root cause often isn't genuine malice from the other person, but rather just an empathy deficit fueled by a distorted view of reality, the loss of those relationships feels entirely preventable.
Totally preventable. But the book doesn't just leave us sitting in the wreckage of our relationships, thankfully. It offers a clear, functional path out of the binary trap.
It does.
Once we recognize the damage this polarization is doing, how do we actually actively fix it in our daily lives?
Well, it requires a fundamental, really deliberate mindset shift built on 3 very clear, actionable pillars. Ask more questions, assume less, and stay open.
Ask more questions, assume less, stay open.
Exactly. And these aren't just polite suggestions. They are actual cognitive tools designed to dismantle the threat response we discussed earlier.
Let's break down how to actually use those tools. So, ask more questions sounds incredibly simple, but actually doing it in a heated moment is completely countercultural.
It's very hard.
Yeah. Instead of immediately declaring your stance and building your wall, you have to actively train yourself to ask investigative questions. And non-interrogations like, why do you believe that crazy thing?
Right, that just puts people on the defense.
Exactly. You need to use genuine inquiries like, how did you come to that conclusion? Or what life experiences shaped that view for you?
Which leads directly into the functional application of the second pillar. Assume less.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, when you ask those questions, you have to implement a cognitive pause. You have to genuinely listen to the answer without letting your brain secretly write the person's backstory while they're talking.
Oh, which is so hard not to do.
It takes practice.
Yeah.
You have to catch your brain in the act of auto-filling their motives and deliberately quiet that function down. You assume they are speaking from a place of their own lived experience, not from a place of cartoonish villainy.
And finally, the third pillar, stay open. This is the willingness to let new information actually alter your perspective.
Right.
It is the active practice of living in the gray areas of life and rejecting the deep comfort of black and white thinking. Because, let's be honest, black and white is incredibly comfortable.
It's so easy.
It requires absolutely zero mental energy to maintain. You always know exactly who the good guys and the bad guys are. Acknowledging the purple and living in the gray, that takes significant, exhausting mental effort.
It really does. And purple state sits in a fascinating space within modern psychological and political literature because of this exact demand for mental effort.
How so?
Well, it belongs to a growing category of intellectual thought that actively champions nuance over extremism. It shares a lot of structural DNA with works like Jonathan Haidt's The Righteous Mind, which explores the moral foundations driving political division,
Oh yeah, great book.
or The Coddling of the American Mind, which examines how avoiding intellectual discomfort actually sets up a fragile society.
But those books, as brilliant as they are, they often hover at the macro level, like they lean heavily into the academic, sociological analysis of large groups. How does Perino's approach separate itself from that academic altitude?
The differentiation is entirely in the tone and the practical application. It takes those grand sociological concepts, the empathy deficit, the cognitive biases, the media distortion field, and grounds them strictly in everyday micro-level human interaction.
Right.
It is highly conversational and very story-driven. It doesn't ask you to analyze the behavior of a distant voting bloc. It asks you to analyze your own behavior in the grocery store aisle, at the PTA meeting, or across your own dinner table.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah, it takes the academic theory and turns it into an unavoidable personal mirror.
Which is exactly why we wanted to dive into these notes today. I mean, the vital question we should be asking ourselves isn't which side are you on? The question is, are you genuinely willing to understand the other side?
Exactly.
If we can master that cognitive pause, if we can ask more, assume less, and stay open, the future doesn't have to be an endless, exhausting war of red versus blue. It can actually be purple.
Imagine for a second the profound shift if the environment suddenly changed.
What do you mean?
Well, we spent a lot of time today analyzing how the digital algorithms reward outrage and conflict, shaping our reality for the worse. But what if you woke up tomorrow and the fundamental code of the internet had just flipped?
Oh, wow.
What if the algorithms exclusively rewarded nuance, profound curiosity, and careful compromise?
That would be wild.
How would that instantly change the way you speak to the person next door? How would it change the tone, the vocabulary, and the intent of your very next text message or social media post?
It would rewrite the rules of human interaction overnight. I mean, the ambient heartbreak we talked about, it would vanish.
But we obviously cannot change the proprietary code of massive tech platforms today. We just can't.
No.
But what if you chose to be your own nuance algorithm in your very next conversation? What if you decided, on a micro level, to be the person who actively rewards curiosity, absorbs the initial discomfort of disagreement, and diffuses the binary?
Be your own nuance algorithm. I love that because that diagnostic x-ray, we desperately want the one that gives us the clean, comforting binary answer of who is entirely right and who is entirely wrong. It just doesn't exist when it comes to human beings.
No, it doesn't.
We are murky, we are complicated, and until we are willing to step into that messy purple reality together and actually look at each other without the auto-filled labels, we are going to keep completely missing the mark.
True.
Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.